you need to make sure you find those ways to put on your own oxygen mask first. And a lot of moms don't, and they burn out. It's all about is slowing down to go fast. And I don't think in my 20s, before I had kids, I would have really understood that. If you're in that resilience forever, that's going to lead to health problems along the way if you're always in the fight or flight mode. And so I think sustainability is the way to go if you want long-term results. It's how do you show up as a human when nobody is looking and there's no written guide of how you're supposed to show up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Inspired Authority. Today's guest is someone who has spent her career helping organizations make better decisions through data. But what I admire most is how she's using that same curiosity to tackle one of the biggest leadership challenges of our time, burnout. Laura Gent Felker is an enterprise data and AI strategist, a leadership advocate, health coach, and the author of The Sustainability Gap, a white paper that explores why so many high-achieving women are breaking, leaving, and rebuilding their careers. Rather than relying on opinions, Laura interviewed women directly to uncover the structural issues driving burnout, identity loss, and the growing challenge of retaining top talent. In a world where AI is changing how we work and organizations are moving faster than ever, Laura reminds us that data doesn't just measure performance, it tells the story of people. Today, we're talking about the future of leadership, why burnout isn't simply a personal problem, but often a systems problem, and what it looks like to build a career that's both successful and sustainable. Laura, welcome to Inspired Authority. I'm so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here today to talk about these very important topics.
Amazing. Okay, so before we get into any of the questions that we've prepared or the white paper, Laura, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are beyond, AI strategist and health coach? Like, who's Laura?
The personal side of me is I'm a mom of 3. I just recently became a mom again, and I'm on parental leave. My last 3 weeks of parental leave and soaking up almost every moment. I have been an advocate for women my entire career, and I continue that advocacy. And I'm also want to make the world a better place. So I do a lot of work in Rotary, and I bring my kids along and my husband along for that journey as well. So it's not just me doing service work by myself, but also bringing the kids along for the journey.
Amazing. Okay, so now we have to talk about Rotary for a second, because I remember when I was in college, I went to a Rotary meeting, but even to this day, I do not know what Rotary is. And I know that they're all over. They're a huge organization. It's kind of like Lions Club too, which I also don't really know what it is. Can you just tell me and the world what Rotary is and why you got involved in that, and like how maybe other people could get involved in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rotary is a worldwide organization. It has over 1 million people in it. And I joined Rotary because we had just moved to Florida about 1.5 years ago. And there was this new Rotary club called SWFL Rotary, called for Southwest Florida Rotary. And it was a way for me to connect with others that want to make the world a little bit of a better place. And so one of their big mottos is service above self. And this Rotary Club is so much fun. I'm able to bring the kids to activities and events. We got an art event coming up. We're able to do service projects. So I'm going to be hosting a tea party at my mom's memory care because I'm a sandwich caregiver for my mom. And so there's so many fun activities. In this world of AI, it helps with that human connection, especially since I am a remote worker and I've been a remote leader since 2018. It helps me connect with people in what I call 3D, so in real life.
I love that. And thank you for sharing it, because those are one of those organizations that I think anyone can get involved in. And ultimately, like, they're all over the place. And there's so many of us, like, I'm a transplant myself. I need to get more out into the world. So now I'm sitting here like I should get involved in Rotary.
Wonderful.
I love that. Okay. So you also mentioned being a sandwich caregiver. And actually, the first time I ever heard that was when we first chatted, but it resonates with me because I've seen a lot of people that have been in that position. Maybe you can share a little bit about that experience and how that has shaped some of the work that you're doing today.
Absolutely. I've been a sandwich caregiver for the last 5 years, and this was not something I was fully prepared or grasped that I was going to be a sandwich caregiver. My mom was diagnosed with dementia in late 2021, and it was a shock to us all, to my entire family, as well as to my mom. She had moved, at the time we were living in Colorado, she had moved closer to us to help support us as a family unit. And then it came to our surprise that I was going to inverse and become what's called a sandwich caregiver, where you have kids at the same time that you're taking care of aging parents, which this is something that a lot of people, if they're not already doing, that they will have to do in the future. And we don't always know the cards that we're dealt, but at the same time, you just kind of roll with it and you adjust as a family as you're dealt those cards.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think it's interesting that sometimes things happen, like her moving to support you and then you having to support her. It's like the universe or God, like bringing that to just fruition. So I think that's so interesting. But more importantly, your call out of at some point, a lot of people have to go through this. I think that, like, at our age, not most people deal with it. There's people that deal with it younger. Like sometimes, like, they're in high school and they're having to deal with it. And I had a best friend that had to take care of her mom when she was in through high school and college and all of the things. But it is something that a lot of people end up having to experience and go through. So your insights there are certainly appreciated. So, Laura, you built an incredible career in data and AI while also becoming an outspoken advocate for high achieving women. What has the current season of life taught you that your younger self couldn't have understood?
I was reflecting on this question this morning as I was getting ready and really being mindful as I was getting ready. And that's one of the things that it's all about is slowing down to go fast. And I don't think in my 20s, before I had kids, I would have really understood that, is having those micro moments for yourself and to be able to engage in that, because you don't get many moments as being a mom of three, being a caregiver, is to be able to have those moments so you can bring your best self not only to work, but also home. And I think that's really important, even if it's just 5 minutes of enjoying putting on your makeup.
I reflect on this all the time because when I am talking on Inspired Authority, I'm commonly talking about having to have that time and that space and, doing the things that are going to bring you joy and give you time for reflection and all of that. The reality is, and I told you this already, I don't have kids. But the funny thing is that almost 90% of my guests have been moms. So, like, I enjoy learning from people who have that experience, but I haven't had it yet. And I have no idea what to expect when I actually get into that season of my life. And so reading your white paper was super just insightful for me, just to see what women experience and how their mindset and changes and how their career evolves after having kids. And so I felt like I was reading about my future in that white paper. And so thank you for sharing that because, again, I don't have that experience, but I certainly think about when I get there, who will I be? Because the identity changes when you become a mom. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, my identity completely changed, especially going from 0 to 1 kids. And when I went from 0 to 1 kids, I had the perfect storm, right? I had 6 months of fully paid parental leave, which is fairly abnormal in the United States standards. I had an incredible boss that was really supportive, and I still struggled with that identity. I struggled when I was going back into work, and we had a kind of part-time return to work, and I still struggled because I was always that pedal to the metal career woman that wanted to just continue to rise up, continue to have new responsibilities and learn new things. And when I became a mom the first time, I was like, can I even do this anymore? And the answer is yes, but you have to have that prioritization shift. You need to make sure you find those ways to put on your own oxygen mask first. And a lot of moms don't, and they burn out. And I have learned like the micro moments to really appreciate that, whether it's 5 minutes putting on my makeup and I'm listening to a song that I enjoy, or really prioritizing working out, which fitness has always been a huge part of my world throughout my life. Before I became a mom, I was a triathlete. I did half Ironmans. Now I'm like, I don't have time to do a half Ironman, but I can still go out and challenge myself physically. And that helps with my mental health as well.
Oh my goodness. Well, I will say I did a mud run, and that was my first one ever. There was a bunch of kids there, so who knows, maybe you and the kids will be doing mud runs soon.
Totally. I can't wait to bring my 7-year-old. He'd be all about it.
I love it. So I do want to talk about your career a little bit because, I'm sure your career has evolved quite a bit from where you started to where you are now. I'd love for you to just kind of tell me, looking back on your career, what decisions accelerated your career more than any promotion did?
There was a moment in time, and it's not even an acceleration of career, but it's an acceleration of becoming a true embedded leader. And the moment of time was when a prior company was going through layoffs. And it was how I showed up and wanted to continue to support others through that. And that was a really pivotal time in my career. I had not experienced that. And now it's a normal part of everyday tech layoffs happening all the time. But at that point in time, I'd never experienced that. I was pregnant with my second child, and I found out about layoffs. Nobody was laid off on my team, but everybody was in a fear-based flight or flight mode. And my first boss out of college, I texted him that day because it was one of the hardest days of my work career. And he said, these are the types of moments when leaders are born. And that'll always stick with me. It's like, how do you show up as a human when nobody's looking and there's no written guide of how you're supposed to show up? And so that moment would be one of the most pivotal moments. That is a hard moment, but it also is what taught me the most.
That's incredible. What advice might you give to somebody who is experiencing that? I mean, there are a lot of layoffs now, and it doesn't, even if you're not the one laid off, it doesn't mean that it's not hard on you, like you had indicated. And then some people are laid off, and that's really hard as well. Like, do you have any advice for people who either are going through it or maybe might experience it in the future?
Yeah, I mean, my own husband got laid off when he came back to work after his parental leave after our second child was born. And so it's hard, and especially if you have so much identity tied up in your career. And so I'd say, if a layoff happens to you or if you are fearing it, do what's in your control. What's in my domain of control? It's learning something new. It's being able to take care of myself. It's being able to figure out financially, if that happens, how can you make sure that you're not in a really bad financial disposition if that happens? And so I think that's what I've coached people as they do have this fear. And so much in life is outside of our control, and layoffs can sometimes be that, hey, that's outside of my domain of control, but over here is what's inside of my control.
Yeah, for sure. I've had a lot of guests on the show talking about like building your brand and growing your skill set outside of what is expected within your role because you want to take control of your future. And if your identity is so tied up in your title and that's taken away and you have no other game plan and you've built nothing else yourself, then it puts you in a harder position. So, yeah, I think anyone who may expect something in the future, like just start building now, or even if you don't expect it, a lot of times it happens unexpected. So just start building your skill set, learning about AI and building your brand and all of that are the things that I would say, just given the experiences that I've talked to many people about.
I mean, it goes to one element that I wanted to talk about today, which is like that culture of growth or that mindset of growth, right? And in this era of AI, you need to have that thirst for learning, continually learning and sharpening your skill sets. And that thirst, what does make you excited? What makes you excited to open up that laptop and be like, heck yes, I'm going to work today, or I'm learning this new thing today. And you do it in your free time. I became a health coach in my free time while I was a mom of two and a sandwich caretaker. Why? Because it's a passion of mine.
I really love that perspective. And I wanted to talk to you actually about, because you're an AI expert, everyone is talking about AI replacing jobs, right? And so like people are trying to figure out, how do I enhance my skill set to protect myself from what is potentially an AI revolution? What conversation should leaders be having right now with so many people feeling like AI could replace my job?
I mean, looking to the future, for one, leaders need to make sure that they're planning adequately to what they know right now, right? There's so many unknowns with AI if you're looking out 2, 3 years. But what's in the here and now? It is your responsibility if you hire someone and then 3 months later they get laid off due to AI, right? That is just poor planning. And I think the second thing for leaders is this culture of growth. You know, what type of environment do you want to foster for your team? And I would way rather have this culture of growth of, hey, what does that next iteration look like? What does the data analyst look of the future? What does the AI analyst, a product builder? 5 years ago, maybe it was a dashboard builder. Those might go away a bit. So, what is that new skill set that people need? And do people have that thirst and excitement and building that culture so it doesn't become a fear based culture, but it becomes a culture of expansion where people can bring innovation and they feel safe in that environment?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I've even seen my BI team, business intelligence team at my company evolve a lot, and they're using a lot more AI, and the tools we're using are changing, and they're becoming the AI change agents across the organization, which is not historically what they did. So it is very interesting to think about, how do you evolve? So, if every executive listening today adopted one AI habit this month, what do you think would be something that they could adopt that would create the biggest impact?
I mean, this might be a bit general, but I learn from my team all the time around what they are doing. And so I sit down at least once a month with, somebody that is an IC that is building because executives don't have as much time to build to really understand what's being built and what problems are being solved. And I think that's really incredible because the world is changing so much of the art of possibility. So I think that's one thing that's more generalistic of what an executive should do is sit down, understand what can be built, what the art of possibility, because executives don't spend as much time building. They might not even know what AI can build and what the possibility. What are like also the shortcomings? It's not a magic pill, right? And so I think it's not going to solve everything. And there's foundations that need to be laid in order to have successful AI implementation. And I think that's where sitting down, understanding what actually can be built, what has been built is so important. And so that's one of my big pieces of advice. Of course, execs can automate parts of their day and stuff, and like having an additional, assistant every morning and wake up and, tell them about their day. But I think the most important thing is that art of possibility.
Yeah. You and I could probably sit down and do an entire episode on AI. I am so passionate about not using AI as your brain. I don't know if anyone's ever put it that way, but like I've seen executives leverage AI in a way that's like, I'm just gonna call it out. It's like embarrassing. Like, did you even read this? Like, do you understand what you just sent? Like, so I'm like very passionate about if you don't know how to actually use AI, then you probably shouldn't use it because it almost makes you look less capable when
Right.
you deliver slop.
There's a lot of slop out there. And so I think that's where I talk about, and I work with young people. I work across my community through Rotary around AI as well. And something I always hone in on is AI should not be in the pilot seat. You know, they should be on the co-pilot seat or the assistant seat type of thing. And so you should still be at the helm when you're steering AI. And so if you are prompting it in the beginning, it can't do the 80% in the middle. And then you be able to do the 10% on the end. The 10% on the end is very important to make sure you're reading through stuff, to make sure the processes are running effectively, not just blindly hitting go.
Yeah. Yeah. I have so many opinions on this. I'm gonna hold them for now, but maybe we need to do an entire AI episode at one point.
Absolutely.
So I want to move into more of the work that you've done, especially when it comes to mothers in business and burnout and some of the systems that create the burnout based on the work that you've done. So one of the most powerful things you've written about is that burnout isn't a personal failure, it's a structural one. What led you to that realization?
It was on my own personal endeavor, but then I didn't know if I was biased. So that's why I interviewed all these high achieving moms to understand what their process was when they became a mom and went back to work and what that looked like. And as kids get older, they're going to school and you have so much pressure to be juggling all these extra things, and they call it the invisible load. And that structurally does not jive a lot of times when you're in corporate, unless you put the right boundaries in place, unless you have this supportive network inside of the company and a supportive team. And it will lead to burnout if you try to go at the same velocity before you had kids. But with that said, when you become a mom, there is this whole other efficiency that you often have, so you can execute really well. But the burnout culture and what I have observed, especially in the last 3 years, when AI keeps getting amped up, is just going harder. We want more. And there isn't that discussion, going back to my health coaching background, of how do you take care of yourself first? And that's so important. And so there's a multifaceted side of the house why, burnout happens, especially for moms. And that's where I started this white paper, because I started seeing the statistics from the Workplace 2025 data coming in. And I was like, is this true? Is my bias correct as to why people, especially in the director and above level, are leaving the workforce?
You talk a lot, and the white paper is based on moms, but I do wonder if, is there a way that people, like myself, right? Like my goal is to have a family and children and all the things, but is there a way that as a high achiever today, I could prepare for my future of having kids? Do you have any advice for someone who might be like me, who doesn't yet have kids?
I think the advice is being able, for one, financially setting up to the best of your ability to do it. That's what's in your control. But then also seeing, like, what would that right flow be when you have kids? And you can make a plan, but honestly, you write it in pencil. Every time I made a plan, it goes in pencil and then we change and evolve, right? So for instance, my first child, Eli, when I went back to work after 6 months of being on fully paid parental leave, I had an au pair, and au pairs worked beautifully for that season. And then it evolved because Eli got older. And so every step of the way, it's going to change and to be able to have that flexibility. And so you just become more efficient. And there's only so many boundaries sometimes you can have as a mom because life continues to change. And so just being transparent with yourself of like, what's the priority today? Ruthlessly prioritizing, as well as like, what's the flexibility that I need to be, able to show up at my job, as well as in my career, as well as show up as a partner, if you have a partner, as a mom. And so those are all really important elements that you start to really think about and ingrain. It's no longer just career or just career and partner if you have one. It becomes a whole nother dynamic, which is a really exciting dynamic. It's really fun for the most part, and it's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine my life in the future often, and I think about like, yeah, what are the boundaries I can start to set now, whether it be with friends and family about the events I'm going to go to and the traveling I'm going to do and all of the things that I've been doing historically, because if and when I do have kids, like that's going to change. And then I also think about like, with my husband, I'm like, okay, what are the things that I need him to start doing proactively? Because I feel like these are the things that are going to burn me out when and if I have children. So I think about that all the time. Now, through your interviews with high achieving mothers, what surprised you the most?
The biggest thing that surprised me was all the different layers of different women and where they're at. So you had the burned out mom, you had the mom that had set the boundaries, you had so many moms on pause. And that was a really interesting one because these are moms, some that I don't knew, some that I didn't know, right? And they are doing this reflectionary moment. And that's okay. A lot of them had never taken a career pause, and this was really scary for them because they didn't know what was next. The mom building something, that was truly inspiring. We're seeing this like fire of like female and mom entrepreneurship, which is so exciting because some moms, they were like, I was burned out. I was running on E. It was not working. And so I needed to design my life for this chapter. And I thought that was really interesting. There was also a mom, a few moms that I spoke with, is they pivoted, right? And they said, hey, I was at, this company, but it wasn't working because they didn't want to acknowledge that I was now a parent. Maybe they wanted you to show up like, they wanted to work like you didn't parent. And then when you show up as a parent, it's like you're not working. And that's like such a common thing. So they pivoted into organizations. Like one mom I spoke to, she was at a SaaS company and pivoted into mental health. And I was like, oh, that's beautiful. How's it working out for you? She was so excited and stuff. And so a lot of these, high achieving moms, they still want to have that purpose and stuff in so many ways, and they might have to get creative. Or, some moms have worked with their leadership and their companies to make it work, which is truly inspiring. And it was so great to hear all of these different stories, which that was the most surprising, is like all these different nuggets of stories to see where they're at in their evolution.
Yeah. I'm inspired by women, especially mothers, all the time. I'm in this algorithm. And on Instagram, I'm in the algorithm of like, moms and, mid 30s that do career pivots, things like that. And there was this one Instagram reel that was this woman that was like, if I see one more mom that's starting a business or burning down their life and restarting, I'm gonna like every post. I'm gonna follow her. I'm gonna, and like all of these positive things about doing that, like, showing up after you've become a mom and things are changing and evolving. And I loved it. I was like,
It's that supportive village, right? That we're all wanting and that we're going through this journey, whether it's a village like right in your hometown or it's like an online network. And we're like, hey, like, let's do this because, in the United States, there's no paid leave, right? Full stop. It's crazy. So we're not supporting moms. And then when you go back, there's daycare and a lot of other childcare costs are really difficult. And so a lot of these moms, I've also talked to them about that and how difficult it is to find childcare in the United States. And I can speak to the United States, can't speak to all the other countries in the world. But with that said, that's the lived experience a lot of these other moms that they've had to have. What happens if you do have a daycare and your kid's sick, like my kid's sick today at home? You have to pivot. You have to pivot fast.
Yeah, I love the concept of the village and the community that you talk about and that you're building. So I'm going to put that in my notes for us to talk about. But I also want to talk about how organizations could be helping women. I think often we're telling women to become more resilient. Should organizations instead be asking how to become more sustainable? Like, what's your opinion on that?
I mean, I have pretty strong opinions around resilience. You're in that fight or flight mode. There's only so long you can be in that fight or flight mode, and your nervous system can be in that, right? You go through a big push of a release and, say it's a software release or something along those lines, or you're closing out a fiscal year. Sure, resilience, let's push through that. But if it's continual resilience that we're asking moms to go through, that's going to lead to something, right? Most likely burnout. And a lot of times, and a lot of the moms that I interviewed, they were burned out. They're operating in, a burnout state for a long time. And sometimes their body tells them after the fact, right? So they might have migraines. They might have high anxiety. And there's a variety of ways that it shows up within the body. And so if you're in that resilience forever, that's going to lead to health problems along the way if you're always in the fight or flight mode. And so I think sustainability is the way to go if you want long-term results, and let's burn the long term versus, hey, let's just have this short-term blip of burning a bunch of employees out.
A lot of the women that had that burnout came from environments where they actually ended up getting a lot of health problems. One of the women, actually, the first podcast episode I did, she ended up getting a lot of autoimmune issues from her burnout. And so I do see that a lot. What are some of the invisible systems inside of organizations that unintentionally push high performers towards burnout?
Being on call 24/7, full stop, right? Never having a break. Even when you're on PTO, that it being a heroic activity to respond, right? Really celebrating people that are working incredible amounts of hours and not celebrating people that are putting their own oxygen mask on. And those are a few ways that company culture, or it might not even be within the company, right? It might just be within an organization where it leads to burnout, health problems along the way, and not as productivity of teams, right? If people are working long hours, you're not going to get those most innovative ideas, people that are excited, people that are having fun coming to work. And so I have seen it time and time again. That is not something that I preach as a leader. I preach in sustainability and being able to have healthy, happy lives lead to great outcomes also within your career.
So, Laura, you wrote your white paper during the fourth trimester while caring for a newborn. What did that experience teach you about purpose and priorities?
I brought my baby girl along for almost all of the interviews. She came along with me. And when you are passionate about something and wanting to bring to life something, anything is possible. And so this was a true passion project of mine, is to really get that voice. It came while I was I definitely took the time, those first few weeks to rest, recover. But this was something that fueled my soul in order to bring more voices to high achieving women and to moms in general. And I just kicked off my research for my second white paper around parental leave and that first quarterback, because that first quarterback was so rough for me after the first kid. Now, after the third kid, I feel like I've changed and evolved each way. It doesn't make it easier. I'm still looking for childcare. I'm still have all like the nervousness that a lot of moms go through, but I feel just reinvigorated to help bring some of those stories along.
Exciting. I'm so excited for this next project that you're working on. And it just continues to emphasize the passion you have around this work and like you talked about creating a village of people who understand what each other are going through. I remember I had a coworker who was experiencing infertility, and it it actually opened my eyes about community because she was talking about joining a Facebook group that helped her a lot in terms of just like other people going through it. And so, can you tell me a little bit about the work you're doing around building a village and building a community? You're doing these white papers, and when I read your white paper, I found the details around the community you're building. Can you talk a little bit about building that village?
I mean, there's a few layers of like a village, right? And so let me kind of talk a little bit about that. And it actually goes full circle back to Rotary. I was new in my community, and when I found out that I was pregnant for a third time, and it was an unexpected adventure, we were so new to Florida, and we didn't have a huge village on site here. And being able to build a community around you that's actually in your community is so important. And to be able to be in the village, you also have to contribute to it. So let me talk about that. That's so important. And so all of my neighbors, we help each other out. It's extremely rare these days in the United States. We hang out. It's a much slower pace of life where I live in Florida, and it's been so beautiful to build that in-person village. We also have the remote village, and I've wanted to start to build that with LinkedIn and really being able to bring the voice of so many moms together. And I don't know exactly where that's going to lead, but it's been so incredibly awesome to be able to bring those perspectives together. And then third is the paid village. And that's an interesting one too, right? And we're starting to see that come out more and more, and it's important. I didn't know all this stuff existed, right? To be able to pay for a village. I have someone right now, I have 3 kids, they're young. I want to keep my house in somewhat of a working order. So every week I have somebody coming over and doing my laundry. I never in a million years thought I would have that. But it's that paid village that's really important to keep us on top of everything that's going on. So I can be able to be there as a mom. I can be there, for my career and to be able to bring it all together. So I think the in-person, the virtual village of like, you can reach so many people globally, and then that paid village, which is important in so many ways.
I love all of this. Community has become something that I am actively looking to build. Why I built my brand was because I joined a community of saleswomen who were just badass ladies building their, brands, getting on stages, like building businesses. And like, had I not joined that community, I don't even know if I ever would have like gotten out of my little corporate hole. I'm sure I would have burnt out. Like, I mean, I've been there, but I'm sure I would have burnt out even worse than if I hadn't experienced that community. And then I'm starting to do more in-person type community stuff. I will say I do where I live, I haven't quite found it yet. Maybe Rotary is going to be that place. Like I've got to look into it. But yeah, and then paid community. I mean, again, I don't even have kids yet, but like somebody has to clean my house and do the things because that I need it. I need it. So you talk about moving from victimhood to agency. What does that transition actually look like in someone's everyday life?
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through it in my own personal adventures, right? And, an example is when my mom got diagnosed with dementia. I mean, it was a shocking evolution, right? Where there is that victimhood, but then it's like agency. What's in my domain of control? How do I get to those next baby step? How do I also try to balance my career while I have all of these caregiving? And so what's going to work and how do I keep evolving? So going from victimhood into agency is so important because it's all around your mindset. And when my mom was diagnosed with dementia, this was something that was incredibly difficult. And I was not expecting it at all. And going from the poor me into, hey, what care can I get? How am I going to be able to balance being a mom, being a caregiver of my own mom, and being able to have a career? And I think a lot of times you have to make micro adjustments when stuff is not working anymore and to continue to evolve. And that's so important, and that's something I wish I would have taught my younger self. And it's been an important evolution because when your life is so full of amazing things, but also the life stuff that you have to deal with, it's great to have that agency to say, hey, what is in my domain of control? And what is not working these days where I'm going to have to make a shift?
Yeah, one thing I think about a lot is you can't be the hero if you're experiencing being the victim. And so I think it's totally okay that when things go wrong or life is just hard, it's okay to feel and it's okay to be sad and mad and all the things because we're human and we're experiencing being a human for the first time, but also being able to say, okay, this is happening. I can feel, but then how do I move forward? Because I think some people do have that mindset where like they never move forward. And I know people like that just continue to let it hold them back from truly moving on.
Yeah, just keep evolving as humans, right? And it's like if I would have looked at myself 10 years ago and, what I am today, I would have never guessed as to where I am, what I'm advocating for, the service work that I'm doing, but also some of the tough elements of life that I've had to go through. And I would have never guessed 10 years ago that I was living in the state of Florida, but here I am. So it's a beautiful life and we keep evolving as humans.
Yeah. So speaking of 10-year ago, Laura, how has your definition of success evolved from that version of you 10 years ago to the version of you today?
My son's first week of school was this week, and I was thinking about that this morning, and I have a story of he started a brand new school. It's a very hands-on school. It's what's called a micro school. So it's, 60 total students from kindergarten through eighth grade. So it's a very small school. And he told me last night he was excited about school and the style of learning. And he was excited that he got a laptop versus an iPad. And that version of success, I was like, yes, he's excited for the year. Right. And so 10 years ago, I didn't have kids, right? So my version of success wasn't always decisions that I made for his schooling, and he's excited about it. And it's going to fuel his intellectual curiosity. And so things like that is where those little moments that he's excited about a laptop versus an iPad, still don't understand why, but I'm going to call that a win. And so it's those small moments are little successes throughout the day versus, back then 10 years ago, I was training for my first half Ironman. That was my version of success, right? And while I might not bode farewell forever to those triathlons, I'm not going to be on that race course for 6, 7 hours anytime soon. But with that said, I am enjoying those micro successes each and every day.
Oh my goodness, amazing. So you're a health coach. What boundaries, habits, things do you do in life just to be happy? Like, what are the things that you do to just drive happiness within your own life? I love that story about, your son being the success. How do you drive happiness within your own life, especially with all the things going on all the time?
I've been actually researching happiness for the last 10 years. It's just an incredibly interesting topic to me. I've been also studying about blue zones and areas where people are living over 100 years old. And what is that human behavior and why are people living that? And I think for me, what drives my happiness is a lot of the great relationships that I have that really fill the bucket and that drive purpose. I think being able to give back to my community and giving back to the world in so many ways drives happiness. And I think my family and being able to do that. So those are like macro things. Micro each day, I try to go out for a walk, even if it's for 15 minutes. I try to get out in nature. You get the vitamin D, you get some physical activity. And sometimes I'm even on a Zoom call while I'm walking, and that's okay, right? Let me do the walk and talk one-on-one, as many of my team members have heard me do. So I can take care of myself physically, because when I take care of myself physically, I'm also taking care of myself emotionally. And that drives and delivers happiness and helps me show up each and every day. And when I'm, needing to rest and recover, I really do. And I try to find creative ways to be able to do that, because with 3 kids, I don't always get a ton of rest. But I think finding those micro moments to be able to rest and recover when I need to. And I have an incredibly supportive partner that helps enable that.
I love that. For somebody who maybe is not super happy right now, like they're just feeling all the things that we've talked about, whether it be burnout, whether it be lack of boundaries, whether it be just living by somebody else's expectations, like what advice could you give somebody who's just truly experiencing a season of unhappiness?
Somebody that's really unhappy right now is my advice would be to take pause and to really take some reflectionary moments to understand what's causing that. And something that I've been a big believer in is getting help when needed. I've been through a lot of different seasons in life. Like I shared, my mom's unexpected dementia journey, and I've gotten a lot of help along the way. And so if there's that true need for mental health help, I've been a huge advocate in the mental health space. And then, taking those pauses and really understanding what's driving that unhappiness. Is it too much on your plate? Is it some of the relationships and who you're spending your energy and time with each day? Is it financial stress and how can you get out of it? So there's so many things that can kind of shift that so you can live your best life and live happy and healthy.
I love it. Thank you for sharing all of that. I think that one's going to resonate with a lot of people. Now, I want to do a quick little rapid fire. So I'm going to throw a couple of questions at you, and I want to hear the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you down?
Man, got a little sweaty palms, but I'm ready to go.
I love it. Okay. First one. One leadership belief you've completely changed your mind about.
To always lean in, because sometimes it's important to pause, reflect, and have different seasons of life.
Oh, absolutely. What's one AI tool you can't live without?
Claude Cowork.
Amazing. I haven't quite figured that one out yet. I use it, I have it, but I haven't optimized my experience with it. A book every leader should read.
Cultures of Growth. It helps with being able to lead teams more effectively.
Amazing. And one habit that's had the biggest impact on your life this year.
2 minutes of meditation every morning with long breaths to start my day out right. And it's just 2 minutes. I'm not talking about like 30, 45 minutes in silence, 2 minutes of meditation to start my day out right.
Oh my goodness. I love that. Okay. So I need to start incorporating that. I have a hard time with breath work. I need to work on it. I like find myself holding my breath all the time. Probably need to figure that one out.
Just do it like sometimes before like big meetings, or if I know it's going to be like a really stressful meeting. Or if I've just been on Zoom all day long, I will just in between take like 10 box breaths and it makes a world of difference.
The box breaths, I've heard of this. Okay, I need to incorporate that. That's really helpful.
Yeah, and it's breathing in, 3 to 5 seconds, holding 3 to 5 seconds, breathing out 3 to 5 seconds, holding. So it's kind of like a box.
Interesting. Okay. Somebody else mentioned that. I think it was Carol mentioned that. So I need to do it. Okay. I love it. So, Laura, before we wrap up today, my last question for you is this. If someone listening feels successful on paper but exhausted behind the scenes, what's the first step towards building a life that feels as meaningful as it looks?
Write down what your most authentic self truly desires and try to attack that. We are built so often to chase the title. And when you get to that title, you might not still be happy with that, right? And so many people often that I've spoken with are like, hey, let me get to that next level. It's always fun to get promoted. But what is it that you truly want and desire out of your life? Not just your career, it's one really important element, but out of your holistic life to be able to drive happiness for you, yourself, and your family.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so many high achievers never actually take the time to sit down and think about where do I want to go? What do I want out of this life? What does success truly look like for me outside of getting the next promotion? So, really important to think about those things. Thank you, Laura. Thank you for your insights and all of the time today. If someone's interested in hearing or reading the white paper, how can they access it?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, I am Laura Gent Felker. And I would love nothing more than to share a link and for you also to be involved in some of the research I'm doing right now around parental leave and when you come back from a parental leave.
Amazing. Thank you again, Laura. This was so insightful. I think it's helped me, even as, again, not a mom, be more prepared for when I get there in my life. But for the people who are listening that are moms, I'm sure there's so much that resonated with them in this episode. And they can just be rest assured that they're not alone. And you've done the research, and there are many women going through these experiences, and you can always find a community of women who are experiencing a similar season where you can connect and ultimately grow together. So definitely check Laura out. Definitely check out the white paper. And then I know Laura's building a community out on Instagram as well, so you can find her there. Laura, thank you again for being here today.
Bye. Have a wonderful day.